Hello, and welcome to Sisters in Power. This is a special episode, y'all. This is a special episode with none other than my brother, my pastor, Pastor Danny R. Cox. Pastor Cox he's a blessed man, and he is a man who exemplifies excellence, commitment, and integrity. Pastor Cox is happily married to Lady Penny Cox for over 50 years, and they have two furry babies. We have Lady Duchess and Sir Duke. Pastor Cox has a favorite motto and a favorite saying. Everyone in church knows what he said, what he means when he said, "You ought to tell God thank you." That's one of his favorite mottos that he says every Sunday. If you know him, you know that's something he'll always say. Pastor Cox was raised in East Dallas Projects. He attended Julius C. Frazier Elementary School, Pearl C. Anderson Middle School, and Skyline High School. I want to bring to you all none other than my brother, my pastor, Pastor Danny R. Cox, to the seat. Come on, Pastor Cox. All right. Well, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening. How are you?
I'm doing fine
right.
today. I'm doing just great.
I tell
How
you
about
what,
yourself?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I'm so happy, and I never thought we'd be sitting here like this, right?
Not in our wildest dreams.
Yeah, not in our wildest dream would we ever be sitting here having this discussion, and I wanted to invite the people in to get to know the person that I know. This is my brother, y'all. So we're going to invite y'all in to get a personal, up close and touch with Pastor Cox, and let's ask him a few questions about his success. The reason for this episode, and I call it a special episode, is because Pastor Cox will be being honored on this Wednesday, April the 16th, I believe, by the Legacy at Willow Being in Plano, Texas. And so we're going to be attending that with him, and I'm so honored to be a part of that honoring service that they're going to be giving him in Plano, honoring him for his service as an employee there, and to highlight some of his accomplishments and his successes since he's left the Legacy at Plano. So we want to welcome him to the seat here, and we're going to go ahead and dive into a couple of questions and ask him, and then we're also going to attend and let you guys in on some highlights at the banquet that they will have from him afterwards at the Legacy of Willow Bend. So, Pastor Cox, you ready?
Yes, I am.
All right.
Yes, I am.
All right. My first question to you is, when did you consider yourself successful?
Well, little sister, I consider myself successful in the sense that I worked hard. I worked hard to get to where I am today. And when you work hard to get to where you are in life, you can consider that a success. But I believe that true success is about continuous, constantly learning and growing. And when you continue to grow, then you are successful. So to answer your question, yes, I feel like I succeeded when I worked so hard to get to where I am today, and it was really hard, to get here.
Okay.
So now I am successful because of where I came from, what I went through, and the road that I took to get here.
That's what I want to focus on. You just brought it up. You hit it. So what I want to ask you, without getting too personal, and it's up to you how personal you want to get with your story. I know your story.
Yeah.
Our family know your story. When you became a pastor, none of us believed it, right? We did. Y'all look, we didn't believe it. It was hard for us to believe because of who he was at the time. Hear what I said, who he was. And so it was kind of hard to believe that our brother, the one who was on the street all the time, we was getting ready for church while he was up on the street. You know, and you can't beat him on the pool table because he the best at it because he got it from his daddy. All right. So I'm gonna ask Pastor Cox if you could just enlighten us just a little bit as far as how deep you want to go, your journey from being on the streets, going to jail, living in your car, you and your wife, And how did you get here? And going back to how would you consider yourself a success coming out of that?
Well, like I said, I consider myself a success to make it through all of that.
Mm-hmm.
To get through what I had to go through, it was an uphill battle.
Mm-hmm.
It was a climb. I started out working when I was going to school. I was in high school, and we started at Lincoln High School, and I was in distributive education.
Okay.
Distributive education is when you get out of school at 11 o'clock in the morning and you go to work, and they give you grades. They grade you by your job.
Right.
Okay, so I did that, and I was working for the Department of Labor Statistics, downtown Dallas, the 1100 Commerce Building. I did not realize, what kind of job I had even in the 10th and 11th grade.
Okay.
I come to find out now that working for the government was a good job.
Yeah.
You are set up to succeed if you're working for the United States government at a young age like that in the 10th grade, 11th grade for the labor statistic. I did not realize what I had. And out of all of that, I loved hanging out more than I did looking out for my future.
Okay.
So you have to look out for your future. If we could tell young people something today, always plan for your future.
That's good.
Don't waste your life. Don't do like I did, because everybody's not going to survive and make it through what I had to go through to get to where I am today. You're not guaranteed to make it.
Not these days and time.
And so that's some of the things I did. I come up in East Dallas, Fraser Courts, and playing pool. My dear bought us, y'all were little kids. My dear bought us a small little pool table. And myself and our cousin Bennett in Fort Worth and Thomas Sneed, we played pool on a little small toy table. That's how I got to be what I call very, very accurate
Okay.
at maneuvering on a pool table, looking at directions and being able to determine where you can place something in angles. See, and I learned a lot about the angles in life.
Yeah.
I learned that from a pool table.
Okay.
Some things are hard to get to and hard to come by in life, just like it is on a pool table.
Okay.
So I learned that, from on my own coming up in the projects.
Okay. And Pastor, a lot of those days that, we saw you and we knew you, we didn't know you.
Yeah.
We saw you, we knew you,
But you didn't
but
know
we
me.
didn't know you.
No.
Because you were never really around us, especially me and our baby sister. We never got to see you as much because you were just out there.
Yeah.
And that's why it was just hard for us to believe, is he really for real? And God began to continue to change. You kept being persistent. You was constantly persistent about God. Once you changed your life, once God changed your life and turned things around, when you came home, out of jail, you're a first lady, you told your testimony of how y'all slept in the car, got dressed in a restaurant or something, and then you would come back and get dressed, still go to church, still went to teach Sunday school. Out of all of that, and you constantly had a spirit of excellence, and you had a spirit to persevere.
That's right.
And those are the words that have stuck out to me about you in this time now that you're in of your, how can I say, your greater latter years. Because it said your latter shall be greater than your former.
Yes.
And so I believe that you are living in your greater years now compared to where you came from. One other question. What personality traits should a leader have?
You should be personality. You should be a great communicator. You should be a great communicator, and you should communicate effectively, and be very, very respectful of people. You should respect other people. And so you have to understand that you have the ability to communicate effectively, and that's what makes you a great communicator or a great pastor.
Yes.
You have to be able to communicate with people, and you have to do it effectively.
And that's a gift you've had
Yes.
since being here under your leadership, as you my brother, and being my pastor. I've seen those leadership traits in you that I usually, as like I said, when we was coming up, we just didn't see those things. And who knew that God could bring this out of someone out of East Dallas? And he did it.
Yeah.
The personality traits that I came up with, Pastor Cox, is showing self-awareness,
Okay.
empathy,
Mm-hmm.
communication,
Mm-hmm.
active listening. You just said that. Communication, patience. What was another one?
What about compassion?
That was it. I just said I was going to break up
Yeah,
compassion.
yeah, very compassionate.
It said being innovative,
Mm-hmm.
being a good decision maker, and conflict management,
Yes.
negotiation.
And you learn these traits. You learn a lot of that in life.
Yes.
The road that you took in life, me being like I was, you could say it seemed negative,
Yeah.
but at the same time it's positive
Yes.
because you learn from your surroundings and your environment and the people that you're around.
You do.
And you learn how to communicate. You learn how to be compassionate.
Yeah.
You learn how to be very understanding in life. And when you transition over into a leadership position in a church as a pastor, you already have you learn how to communicate with senior members.
Yes. That's important.
The senior members in a church. Most of our churches are made up of senior members.
True.
And I learned that from the legacy of Willa Bean because
Okay.
I was at the legacy of Willa Bean, a senior living.
Ah,
Okay,
okay.
it was upscale senior living,
Okay.
Jewish people, and I was around them every day,
Okay.
all the time, riding with them, and I learned how to communicate with the older people. And so when I became pastor of Greater Memorial, I was already used to dealing with senior members. That made it a little easier
Okay.
for me to be able to transition into the pastor role.
Because communication is key anywhere in life. It doesn't matter if you're a pastor, if you're a manager. Communication is always the key, and knowing how to do it effectively. That's the tricky part.
Yes.
Because people think that, because of our, calling, or because of our leadership role, that you just automatically know how to communicate. But I believe that a lot of people are in these positions and don't know how to communicate, but they're great leaders. You have some leaders that are great leaders, but not great communicators. They're not effectively communicating, and they may think that they are, but people will let you know, when you're not effectively communicating. Am I right? Because they will definitely do that. That's why it's good to have, what was this other, negotiation skills.
Yeah.
You have to know how to negotiate, how to communicate, when to pull back, when to say, when not to say.
Yes.
I've had my boss. I always call him Dr. P, and he's a very good person of business. And so he always gives quiet, sound advice. He's not pushy. He doesn't push his views on anybody, but he is one in the background that's always kind of, he's never one to jump to any conclusions. And I think that's something a good, effective leader, an effective leader can possess too, is not jumping to making rash decisions. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to wait. My friend, and he was the president and the founder of the legacy at Willa Bean, named Michael Ellington. Michael always told me he had a soft-spoken voice, but he meant what he said.
Yeah.
He meant exactly what he said. If he said something, he meant it. You would even sometimes take him lightly because of the tone and the pitch in his voice. It sounded like he was so easygoing, but he was as serious as you could get.
Yeah.
He meant what he said. He said one time to me, when he asked somebody to do something, he wanted them to do it yesterday.
Okay.
Yesterday.
Yesterday.
Not tomorrow. Not tonight. Yesterday.
Yeah.
Get right on it.
Okay.
Okay. And that's what he does. He was a serious man, and I liked him. That's how I ended up at Legacy through him. Okay, I met him at Golden Acres, and I ended up going to Legacy and was promoted to a position of transportation coordinator. Now remember, now I came from the pool hall.
Yeah.
Okay, I came from out of East
Shoot
Dallas
pool,
projects.
right,
Okay,
right.
and now I find myself, successful. Y'all listening to us, successful. That's what happened in my life. I ended up being the transportation coordinator at the Legacy of Willow Bean in West Plano, Texas, straight from the pool hall.
From the
Okay?
pool hall.
Didn't have no skill set,
skills.
no experience, never had done any of this. But God places a talent and a gift inside of everybody. And when you connect with Christ, when you get with Jesus, He will pull out of you what He put inside of you.
Yeah. Why don't you share with them what happened when they did hire you, and how you and the way you carried yourself, how you changed and implemented the dress code? Because people always talk about Pastor Cox. He always dressed up, right? Y'all know how y'all be looking at Pastor Cox. He ain't gonna never wear no jeans. You'll never see him in no blue jeans. But he's always dressed for success. You never see you out of place. I don't care where you go. You're gonna always be dressed apart. Tell the people how that came about.
Well, I learned that. I got that. That was one of the things that my brother, Deacon Fred Cox, he gave me something of value. He didn't give me money. He didn't give me any of that, but he gave me something that I could carry with me the rest of my life. He taught us how to dress, how you should dress. And so when I got to the Legacy at Willow Bean, Michael put me in transportation. He gave me a double split shirt that you wear on the outside of your pants with the two split. And so he gave me one of those with the Legacy logo on it. And so I said, okay. So from there, I decided in my own mind that I wanted to take this to another level. So I went out and I got me a pullover V-neck sweater. I went down to this logo shop and I had them to put a logo on this sweater that I bought at Macy's. I bought it myself and put the logo on it. Then I put on a white shirt and I put a necktie on and wore some slacks and shoes. When Mr. Ellentuck saw me at work that day, he looked and said, I like that. He said, we're going to make that our dress code for transportation. Everybody that came along after that, that's the way they came in. They had to come in wearing a tie, a white shirt, and a pullover sweater, V-neck sweater, either the cardigan sweater or just a V-neck pullover. And we turned that into a uniform. Because Michael was that kind of man that carried himself, like that. And so when he saw me, he liked what he saw.
Wow.
He said, I like what I see. And we went over to Kohl's department store across from the Legacy at Willow Bean. He bought 3 or 4 cases of pullover sweaters and had me to take them all down to this logo shop and put logos on every one of them. And passed them out to all of the members. They call them members. They don't call them residents at the Legacy because it's an upscale retirement place. And so these people come from North Dallas, over by North Park Mall, Forest Lane, Raw Lane, in that neighborhood there. So I started doing that, and then the people, everybody around the building had on sweaters, bow ties.
And see, so you changed the environment. Yeah. Because of the way you carried yourself, the owner, the boss saw something in you.
That was a form of communication.
Yes.
Okay. Communicate effectively.
And so that came out of the way you carried yourself and the way that you dress. So that's the reason. So if y'all didn't know the reason, this is the reason why you see Pastor Cox always carry himself in this way, because of, like he said, coming off the streets. He done been on the streets all long enough. He wanted to change his image.
Yes.
He wanted to change how he was doing things and the way he was, because he had been wearing all these jeans and all this stuff all that time, all these years. So you said, I don't want to look like that no more, right?
And I tell you this, Mr. Lewis, can I call you Mr. Lewis?
Yes,
I can call you Sean. Mr. Lewis. that was embedded in all of us boys in my family
From
from
our
my
dad.
daddy. My daddy got it from his father.
Okay.
His brother lived in Berkeley, California. You had an uncle named Wilbur, Uncle Wilbur.
Uncle Wilbur.
Uncle Wilbur was the same way that you see when you see Fred.
Yes.
That's the way Uncle Wilbur was. So it was passed down.
From generation.
Yeah,
Yep.
from generation to generation. They dressed like that. Muddy and Daddy used to dress like that. If you ever look at some of the photos of them when they were younger, you would see that in Muddy and you would see that in Daddy. And then they pass it on down to us. Look at you.
Yeah.
Look at the rest of us. They all do the same thing. Okay? And so I learned that from my brother. My brother got it from our uncle. My daddy got it from his older brother, Uncle Wilbur. And they both got it from Daddy Claude. Okay? So that's the way it was. You was a baby. Mama Viola used to iron all of our grandfather's clothes, keep them starched, iron pressed. They were very, 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 very neat. Okay, that's a gene.
And all of us are like that.
That's a gene.
Honestly, we all are like that. Everybody, when you see my family, my sisters and brothers, and we're all just like that without even really ignoring it. Really, when we were growing up, we really never even thought about it until we got grown. I know for me, till I got grown, and people I would hear things being whispered about me that she always dressed up. She always did she, and it wasn't for show. This is not for show for us. This is what's in us. We were raised this way. I didn't get to see our grandmother. Me and my baby sister, we never got to see Mom Vol and Daddy Claus. So all of my brothers, older brothers and sisters, y'all got to see them and experience what we didn't get to experience. And so we just got it from our mama. We got it from our daddy. And so they carried themselves professionally at all times. Anytime you see my mother right now, my dear got on a blazer, some slacks, and she got her hair together, or she have a little turban on, and she have her nails painted. And she looks that way all the time. She was a neat lady, kept her house clean all the time. So that's something that we do carry, Pastor Cox, that has been embedded in us as children. And a lot of times we miss that now, and seeing those traits and those values taught to children nowadays, because we got all of that growing up. I think it's past, when you get past 40, maybe 45, we missing it. Early on, they missing it. But 45 plus, we had a different set of values that we were raised on. And so I just wanted to bring that point up to the people so they can understand why you dress the way you do and why you are, because it's in our genes, it's in our DNA. And I can honestly say, for our brother Fred Deacon Cox, he was the one who taught me how to dress. He did not like to see women and girls with our undergarments showing. He would always pull us to the side as little sisters and tell us, you don't need to wear that. Tuck this in. Don't show this. Men are visual. We see straight through that. We understand what's under there. He used to say those things to us. So that's why you always see me mindful of the way that I dress and the way that I carry myself. My sisters are that way, the same way. So we had the teaching, and we have to be receptive of that type of leadership when you see a person that carry themselves in that way as well. Pastor Cox, I have another question for you. What mistakes have you made along the way?
Oh, my mistakes. Ooh, I made so many, Miss Lewis. I made a lot of mistakes. And one of the mistakes that I made was not focusing.
Okay.
Not focusing on my life and focusing too much on negatives. I focused a lot on the negatives instead of the positives.
Okay.
Things that capture your attention, keep your mind. That was a big mistake that I made when I just did not focus on the right thing. Closing my mind.
Okay.
Having a closed mind. I made a big mistake when I closed my mind to new ideas.
Wow, that's good. That's good.
Close my mind. You got to have an open mind.
Open. Yeah.
You got to have an open mind to new ideas, because things change. And life just changes, because there's life. And you have to go with the flow. You have to stay with the flow of life, because each and every day is a different day. technology comes along. You got to learn how to change with the times. And that was one of my biggest mistakes, having a closed mind.
Wow, having a closed. Did y'all hear that? One of his biggest mistakes is having a closed mind, and we do that a lot now. It's, especially nowadays, we don't open our minds to other opportunities and things that are out there that we could do better by staying stuck in the same old traditional
Yeah,
ways.
yeah.
What would you say is one
And
of the
then
biggest
another one, another thing was seeking the approval
of
of
others?
other people.
Wow.
Whenever I was trying to seek the approval of people, that was a big mistake, because you don't have to get approval from other people. Long as God approves of what you're doing, you can't look for your answers in people.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was another problem that I had. A big mistake that I had was seeking the approval of other people.
So, what would you say a mistake that, um, looking back from when you started pastoring, I'm not gonna say ministering, pastoring. What would be one of the biggest mistakes thus far? Because you still haven't finished. Would be what was one of the biggest mistakes you would say thus far that you made, and what you regret? You know, the mistake you made and you regretted doing it.
Sometimes I wanted to, when you want to do something, and then when you look for other people to approve of what your ideas or things you come up with, you have to listen to when God is speaking to you, and not listen to when people are speaking, because you're going to always hear voices. You're going to hear the voice of God, and you're going to hear the voice of people. Okay, and so when you want to make changes, making some changes, approval, when you are making changes in the physical building, okay, in the physical building, a lot of people didn't approve of this. Okay, and sometimes it slows you down when you're looking for the approval of other people to tell you whether or not that's okay to do or not. But you have to always listen to God when God is speaking. Everybody don't hear what God is saying to you.
Wow.
He
That's good.
speaks to you for what he wants you to do. And you can't look for other people. I can't look for you to approve of what God had told me to do. I have to try to get you to understand what God told me to do, because the Lord spoke to me and told me to do this. You may have another idea.
Wouldn't you say your patience have helped you?
Yeah.
Having patience and restraint has helped you in your
Yes.
pastoralship?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
pastoring takes patience, and pastoring takes love, like really loving God people. No matter what I feel, I gotta love God people. Wouldn't you agree with that and say
I agree.
patience?
I agree. Patience, and you learn that in your life, coming up as a child, coming up as a young adult, coming up as a teenager, being around hard to deal with people. Okay, because people can be hard to deal with sometimes, and God trains you how to deal with people. First of all, He gonna put people in your life that's gonna be hard to deal with, and that's where you're gonna grow. That's another part of being successful.
Yes.
When you succeed in being able to deal with hard to deal with people in your life, it ain't always church.
Right.
Okay, it's not always church. So when we talking about this, I'm not just necessarily talking about people in the church.
Right.
Okay, that too, but we talking about it in your life.
Yeah.
Because I've been around a lot of people, hard to deal with. We had sisters. Okay, and people were hard to deal with in our in our sisters and brothers' lives. Okay. And you get patience, but you have to let patience have her perfect work. And you'll be wanting nothing, okay?
That's scripture. That's scripture.
That's Bible.
What keeps you up at night, Pastor? What is something that may keep you up at night?
The main thing, and it's just because it ain't a lot can keep me up.
Because you're going to go to sleep.
I'm going to sleep. I don't care what you say. It don't make no
Give him a
difference.
piece of
If
chicken,
it get too
he gonna
quiet,
sleep.
listen to me, y'all. If it get too quiet, too long, I'm going to sleep. Okay,
ain't lying.
but studying most of the time, my biggest deal with with keeping me up at night is studying.
Wow, that's good.
Studying for the weekend, studying for Sunday morning,
Yeah.
because it's not just a quick something you
Right.
do. You have to put work in. Okay, you put in
Wow.
some work, and it takes time to study the Word of God
It
to
does.
where you're gonna deliver this word to God's people. Okay, and so that's my main thing. Just
Because you
staying
got
up.
to study.
Yeah, I got to study.
Yeah.
You got to do that.
You can't get up before people without studying.
You
You
gotta
can't
study.
even operate on your job without knowing your
Yeah, you
job
got
and
to know.
practicing what you do on a regular basis.
That's
Sometimes
right.
some people can just do their job just at the drop of a
Yeah,
hat.
that's right.
You know, because they've been at it so long. You know, they've studied and known it enough to where they can just do it. But when you're pastoring the Word of God, you have to always study.
In other words, you got to be committed to
Yeah.
this. You have to be committed. You have to be dedicated to studying, and that comes from loving God.
Yeah.
When you love God, when you realize what God did for you and where He brought you from a mighty, you know how we say in church, a mighty long way. He brought me through many toils and snares.
Yeah.
And so at least I can do is study His word to deliver it to His people.
Wow, that's good. You know, because we as ministers, you can say, I don't want to do this today. I'm tired. I'm gonna cancel. I'm not gonna do this. But as a pastor, you have to continue to do it no matter what, right?
Yes, you can't
You
stop.
you can't stop. And that's I guess that's the benefit of being a minister, you know, if you will, that we can, you know, we don't have to do the things that a pastor do. And so that's why I see sometimes a lot of people don't understand the role of pastor.
Pastor.
You may want to think you want to be a pastor. You don't understand the things that the pastor has to do
Yes.
and the sacrifices that pastors make.
You are right.
It is a sacrifice that a pastor makes every day, 24 hours a day. It never turns off.
Never.
And so it's easy for us to say, you know, I only have, you know, Bible study and that's my part and I'm done for the week. But the pastor has to be there whether you Bible study, Sunday school, programs,
Whatever, you
church
got to be
service.
there.
Because guess what? If somebody don't show up, you still have to do
You
it.
carry on.
You still have to carry on the church, and you still have to carry on the. If somebody at work don't show up, if you're a manager, you what? You have to step up, and you have to get the job
You're
done.
right.
Am I right?
Yes, right. And on one more thing before you go to the next question, another thing is I regret or mistake that I made, and maybe some other pastors and ministers have made the same mistake, not giving enough time to your loved ones.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
good.
Not giving enough time to, you know, you have to make time for your loved ones, your family. You know, I didn't do that back, you know,
Yeah.
coming up. I didn't spend any time with my family, nieces and nephews. Some of them I'm just getting to know them. Some of them I don't even know their names, okay? Because that comes with applying yourself and spending time with your family.
Yeah.
You know, and that's one of the mistakes that I made also before we go forward is not spending enough time with my family.
Yeah. You know, a lot of pastors do have that regret. I've heard them in interviews like this. They've said and they've talked about their regrets. And one of the main ones is not spending enough time with their children, not their wives, and spending time with family members. I've heard that a lot. A lot of them do have that regret that if they could do it all over again, they would do things a little differently. And they would retire early enough to be able to enjoy life. I've heard, so you're absolutely right, Pastor Cox. Who was the biggest influence in your life?
The biggest influence in my life was first of all, my wife. The biggest influence in my life was Penny. Okay, I would not know God if it hadn't been for her.
Wow.
She, you know, when I met her, it was destined for me to get to know God. So He led me to her. I followed her to church.
Okay.
And so that impacted my life tremendously. It changed everything. Was meeting her, following her to church. I didn't follow her because I love Jesus.
Yeah. Tell the truth.
It wasn't because I loved the Lord.
She was fine.
And he heard my cry. No. I thought she was fine.
She was fine.
Okay. Yeah, she was fine.
Yeah.
And she was pure. She was pure. I liked her.
Pretty, yeah.
Okay. And I followed her to church. Okay. And she was to me the bait that God used to draw me to him.
Wow.
Okay. And I followed her up in a church.
Wow.
And when I got in the church, that's just where God wanted me to be. So she was the biggest influence in my life, other than other people. You know, some other folks, but the biggest.
The biggest.
Okay, the biggest.
She was the biggest.
Yeah.
She was the biggest influence.
Yeah.
And he proudly say that, y'all. And if you saw the two of them together, you would understand. And Lady Penny was a big influence in my brother's life, and I can honestly say that she definitely has made an impact on him, and they still 50 years plus going strong in their marriage. They married about as long as I am old. You know, they would. My sister-in-laws in my life are not sister-in-laws.
You were a baby.
I was.
You was a baby.
Nay was the pretty
Nay
one.
was a little bitty baby. Okay.
Yeah.
And Nay is 50.
How old is Nay? 50.
Yeah.
Yeah, she 50 something.
Yeah, she's
I'm
50.
56,
She's
57.
She's in her early 50s.
She may be 55, 54.
That's how long I've been with Lady Penny. Okay.
Wow.
For 50 years at least.
Yeah,
Okay.
at least. Yeah. Because and people, I say this all the time, our sister-in-laws don't feel like our sister-in-laws. They're more like sisters. Because we were babies when y'all got together. I think I said it one time in church one time. I told them that when we was little, they was all getting ready to go to Frankie Beverly and Mays concerts, and everybody was dressed to the T, getting ready to go out to see Frankie Beverly. All of my brothers and sisters and their husbands and their wives, and so then we came up and we followed the same pattern. All of our husbands and wives, we getting ready to go to Frankie Beverly. God rest his soul, Frankie gone, ain't he?
Yeah, Frankie
gone.
Oh,
there gonna be no more Frankie. It ain't gonna be no more Frankie.
And Mr. Lewis, before we go on, we trying to get through this, interview, but the next impact in my life was when I became the pastor of Greater Memorial.
Wow.
That impacted my life.
Because you wasn't expecting that.
No, I wasn't. I wasn't expecting to become no pastor of no church. And everything, it was impactful for me to become the pastor of the church. I looked at Penny and said, Penny, these people done voted me in as the pastor of this church.
What I'm finna do?
I had never pastored a church before.
I don't know how to do this.
I had never done anything more than taught a Sunday school lesson.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
I taught a Sunday school lesson and became a minister. And from that point on, from becoming a pastor of Greater Memorial, plus being married to Penny, those two things impacted my life greatly.
Wow. It impacted it. I know it did.
That's where I am today.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it has been a learning process every step of the way, hasn't it? Yeah, because I see it in you every Sunday. You're still learning and growing. And that was one of my questions. What did I have? And I think I had that. It said, how do you plan to continue growing and developing?
Keep loving God, stay with God, and keep being faithful to Him, because God blesses faithfulness. Pastor Cyrus told me that when I went to True Holiness. He said, Brother Danny, God blesses faithfulness.
Yeah.
And I just started being faithful to God.
Yeah. And ever since then,
I've been
being blessed.
Yeah.
What you say? You done had two cars paid for, and you ain't borrowed no more money from nobody
in 14 years. I'd have to borrow $10, $20 from anybody in the last 14 years.
God done provided.
Plus, I started tithing. Okay, I tithe.
Yeah.
I got to say that. Okay, tithe. God said, "Bring ye all." I was obedient to God.
Yeah.
Bring it.
Yeah.
Okay, and when I started doing that, I hope somebody listening to us today, okay? But when I started doing that, I haven't looked back since.
Ain't been broke a day since.
I haven't been broke.
And being able to help other people.
Yeah, I still got $3.
You got $3.
I keep $3 in my
My
pocket
sister used to
all
say,
the
"Let me
time.
hold $5."
Yeah, I got something all the time, and it's been like
Yeah.
that for the last 14
Yeah.
years. Yes,
Wow.
it have, and that's a long time
Yeah.
from somebody that used to borrow money all the time.
Yeah. I always borrow. Then
Yeah,
he come to the house, but he gonna borrow
I
$10.
borrowed $10.
And then you be gone. Then
Yeah, I had to pay Daddy back a lot of times. I borrowed some money from Daddy till I
Yeah.
get paid.
Yeah.
But I was messing up.
Yeah.
And then when God called me to pastor in the church, our daddies told Fred and Roland them to stay with me because he said
did.
Danny Ray has
Has
changed. Yeah.
Mhm.
And anybody know I changed, he knew I changed.
Yeah.
He said, now he's real.
Yeah.
He's not playing. He
Yeah.
changed.
That's
So,
when Daddy said that. And he
yeah.
told him, he said, Danny Ray done
he
changed.
changed.
And he told our brothers, and he told them, y'all stick with him. Didn't he tell them that on his dying bed?
Yeah.
Y'all hear me? Our daddy saw the
Yeah.
change in his son.
He saw it.
And he saw it. He said, this boy for real.
Yes.
And he said, I want y'all to stay with him
And that's
no
something.
matter what.
That's something, Mr. Lewis. That's something to hear something like that coming from somebody who's not a chairman of a deacon board.
Yeah.
He wasn't a pastor. He wasn't a minister. He was just dad.
He was just dead.
And your father and your mother know you better than anybody.
Yeah.
Okay. The only somebody know you better than them is God.
Yeah.
Now, Daddy know me. He knew me. I was his son. When I made a change, then Daddy saw it, and he was not a man of God as we
Man of
see
God.
it. Okay, he was
No, he
not
was
the man
not.
of God.
No, he was not. My
Yeah.
daddy, he was something, but he sure wasn't no man of God. But he definitely was a father.
Yes,
And he
yes.
definitely was one. Daddy was a man of not many words.
Right.
But when he did say something, it meant something.
Yeah.
And he did. He took care of all of us, and he took care of my deal.
Yeah.
He also had a final request that y'all look out for your mama.
Yeah, look out for Dora.
He said y'all keep up with Dora before he died. He did say that and told our brothers to stick with you at the church.
Yeah,
Don't leave you by yourself.
Yeah.
That's what he told him. Didn't he? He said,
Yeah,
don't leave him.
We've been,
And they've been
I've
together.
I've been around her for 70 years. Okay, my mother 70 years myself. You know, and then all of y'all come along.
Yeah.
And we all were one big family.
Yeah.
Okay, and I just love it. You know, to have sisters and brothers. You know, that are still here. You know, we had two siblings that are gone now.
Yeah.
You know.
Jeff and Claudette.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jeff and Claudette, those are other siblings that have passed on. We had our sister that passed away, that she was murdered. And I hate to even always say that, but it's the truth. She was murdered by her husband of, I believe, 25 years, if I'm correct. And then our brother Jeff, he died from a brain aneurysm at James Madison High School. And I never forget the day, Pastor, when my dear walked across the stage and got his diploma. And the doctors at the hospital gave her his hair, where they shaved it off, where they was going in his brain.
Yeah.
And they gave her his hair in a bag and his last belongings and turned around and she came home. And that's the day that Monday finally had her break, when knowing Jeff died.
Yeah.
That was the day you
I
wasn't
didn't
there.
even know that.
You wasn't there. You was up on Spring. You was shooting pool.
I wasn't there.
And Pastor was out. We was there at the house, me and Nate.
But I'm gonna tell you something about that. Only Penny know this. When I was at home that day, when Jill passed, I was trying to hold everything in. Okay, and Penny told me, release.
Yeah.
You gonna hold that in? There's too much pressure.
Yeah.
And I cried. You know, at home. Nobody saw that with Penny. Okay. And that was one of the things that I had with the question you were gonna ask me. I had memorized that. You know, the way I pushed through.
That's what my last question.
Okay.
How did you push through?
I pushed through all of that. You know, just by remember.
It said, "How do you push through your worst time?"
Okay,
that's the question.
My worst time, y'all. My worst time was when Jeff passed first.
Yeah, Jeff.
I pushed through that.
Yeah.
With the help of God.
Yeah.
And the help of my wife, Penny. I pushed through when Claudette was murdered. Okay, I had to push through that. It was terrible to hear that news the way it happened. Okay, and when Daddy passed away, I watched him. Okay, we all went to the hospital and saw, and he came home to pass away at home.
Right.
And so just that helped me to push through when I lost them, y'all,
Yeah.
you know. And I pushed through that with the support of our family,
Yeah.
in particular my wife, you know, Penny, because she been there with us. You know, we just mentioned that she been there with 50-some years.
Yeah.
So that was a big help, you know, for me to do that because I cried that day.
That's the day we saw you cry when you came back, when you came
even
there.
though, you know, and I went to Parkland and I cried over Jeff. Okay.
Because you asked God to save Jeff.
I tried to talk him into
You tried
it.
to talk him into saving Jeff. I'll never forget those days.
I tried to talk God
Yeah.
into saving
Jeff.
Jeff, you know. And I told God that if he saved Jeff, that I would work for him. God said, "You gonna work for me anyway." Okay. You gonna do that anyway.
Yeah.
So, you know, you can't negotiate with God like that, you know. See, God knows what he's doing, and he allowed things to happen in our life. But I was able to push through all of that, and those were some of the toughest times, you know. Out of all the other things that happened that I went through in my life, those were the tough ones.
Yeah.
Claudette, Daddy, and Jeff. Okay.
Those were 3 deaths, immediate deaths in our family that we all had to deal with. And as I was saying that was the day that we saw our mama deal with Jeff is gone.
I didn't know that.
But you weren't there, but we were there, but you came.
Jeff had
that
that fro. I'm talking about, you
It
know,
was
when
a
you talking about
perfect
cutting
fro.
that hair, that afro.
Yeah.
Just
He did.
cut.
It was cut
just
nice.
nice, you know. So if they cut it off and gave it to my dear, you know.
She kept it in that nightstand drawer in a bag for years. Monday kept Jeff hair, and she came home from the hospital, and she went to the graduation. I'm sorry. When she came home, Monday was in the kitchen cooking. I never forget it. Me and Nay was playing somewhere in the house, and all of a sudden, her china cabinet. My mother used to have a beautiful china cabinet with all her china. You remember when she had that china cabinet, and she took the china out of the cabinet, and she took it and smashed it on the floor in the kitchen, and just screamed to the top of her voice, "Jeff!" And the whole house froze. And Monday just fell to the floor just crying. And after that, Monday never cried again. But our mother was a very soft-spoken lady. She never cried a lot. If she did, it was always quiet in church. She would just dap her tears. But that was a moment that I'll never forget, that we all as sisters and brothers, it affected all of us in a way. But the only reason why you wasn't there, you didn't know, is because you wasn't there.
I wasn't there.
And that was one of those times that Pastor Cox, y'all, he was just not around at that time. And so he's telling y'all the truth when he said he just didn't know everybody because he was not there. It wasn't because he didn't love us. He was just doing his thing. You know how some members, everybody got a family member that's just doing their thing.
I didn't know. I didn't know you and Nay. And I didn't know Harvey.
Yeah.
And Fred Jr. I didn't know y'all. I knew you, but I didn't know you. Okay. And when I would come around on holidays and pass through, and see all of y'all celebrating, y'all was going to church and everything, you know. And then one day when God saved me, I got to know you in the last 14 years. You know, now I know you.
Yeah, now we know each other.
Yeah, I know you.
We know now, and we've been through some things. Y'all understand? We've been through some stuff. Brothers and sisters go through things too, and we love each other. If you love each other enough, you stick it out. Cause guess what? You're gonna always be family, and you're gonna always be sisters and brothers, no matter what. So we got to work this thing out and learn how to live with each other and respect each other. Am I right, Pastor?
That's right.
I know I'm right. I have one last question, and we getting ready to wrap this up.
Okay.
How do you want to be remembered?
Oh my God. I want to be remembered as being compassionate. I want to be remembered for being a loving person and kind. I want to be remembered for being very, very thoughtful. I want to be remembered for that, you know, and just love people. And then I want to be remembered for loving God. Like I loved other things in life. But now my perspective has changed. Because a lot of times in my life, I would have been wanting to be remembered for being something else. You know, some people want to be remembered for being a player. They want to be remembered for being this or that. But I want to be remembered for being thoughtful. kind to people, very understanding when people come to you with things in their life going. I want to be remembered. Very, very compassionate with folk. Because it's important to be compassionate with people. You have to kind of understand where people are coming from and what they're going through. Because every time somebody come to you, they may be going through something. But sometimes when you're not the kind of person that has any compassion on people, you're not very thoughtful. You know, you abuse people. I don't want to be remembered for being like that. I want to be remembered for being a compassionate and thoughtful and loving kind of person. And I want to be remembered for being a good husband.
Good husband, that's good.
A good husband and a good family member, brother, uncle, you know. Because you want your nieces and nephews to kind of, you know, be like you, you know. And it's good to be liked by your family.
Yeah.
They ought to, and then somebody ought to want to be like you. One of your nieces and nephews or your little brother, they ought to grow up and say, you know what? When I grow up, I want to be just like him. Okay? Because that means they remember something about you that they like.
And it's good to be respected, right?
Yeah.
It's something that we all as brothers and sisters know. We've talked about it personally, that we want to be loved and respected by our nieces and nephews. Even when things go wrong, we still want to be able to be loved. And we love them and respect them too, because now they grown, they're growing. And so we have to reciprocate with each other, right?
Each other, yeah.
Amen.
That's it. And that's what I got to give you today, Mr. Lewis.
All right.
God is good, and I'm so glad that Jesus saved me, okay? And he brought me from a mighty long way. You know, we always say that, you know, he brought me. Now, I'm telling you now, literally, he brought me from a mighty long way.
Yeah. Yeah, you only tell me a little bit.
Toils and snares, and I can only tell you a little bit of it, you know, because I can testify all day long. And some of the things that I can testify about and talk about, people would just sit and they'd be looking like in awe, you know. You mean to tell me? Yes.
I did that.
Yes. And I can give you the cleaned up version of it, you know.
That's what we did.
Yeah.
Well, you know what?
That's
you
one
have
of them aha moments.
Yeah. Because I forgot that question too. What's your biggest aha moment? Yeah, so, you know what, Pastor? What is it that you tell us every Sunday you hit the pulpit? And I just said it a minute ago, and we finna get ready to end this video, y'all. Every Sunday, Pastor Cox has this saying. When he get up in the pulpit and church is going on, he said, you ought to
tell God
thank you. We want to tell God thank you for this interview.
Thank you. Put those hands together and tell God thank you. Yeah.
Thank y'all so much for tuning in to Sisters in Power. This has been awesome. I'm so proud, and I'm so proud to be his baby sister, and I'm so proud of all the accomplishments, and just to know that the legacy at Willow Bend has thought it not robbery to honor him and honor his accomplishments and all that he's done since he's left the company. And he's presently still there, y'all. He talk about he's still on the payroll. He just ain't there. Am I right, Pastor?
Yeah, that's a blessing.
He's still in there. And that's a blessing. So we thank you all so much for tuning in. This was my special episode, special episode of Sisters in Power. April the 16th. Right?
April 16th.
Is when he will be being honored. We're going to come back, Sisters in Power. We're going to be there, and we're going to bring you guys some highlights of the banquet, and you'll get to see the owners of the legacy at Willow Bend. You get to see some of the tenants, or the members, as he called them, because it's an upscale retirement living home. And so there are going to be lots of people there to honor and support this man of God, and to push him and to continue to support him. We'll bring you some highlights on April 16th. And it'll be live. We'll let you know when we'll come on, and it'll go live, and you guys will get to see it. The church family, you'll get to view it as well. But I do want to say thank you so much for tuning in to Sisters in Power. Thank you for tuning in and supporting me and supporting everything about Sisters in Power. Pastor Cox, thank you for taking out your time today and sitting here with me and getting a little deeper, getting a little up close and personal with you, and letting the people in on a little bit of Pastor Danny R. Cox and how life has been good to him. So thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you all again. Sisters in Power is on the move. We're doing some things, and you'll be seeing us again. We're going to come back, I believe, April 26th, and we'll have another Sister in Power episode. You don't want to miss it. Thank you so much, and you all have a good rest of your day. We'll talk to you later.